The Forest Mother. My name is Andres Morales. This is a true story. Between 1980 and 2019, my family lost 12 people. The police called them accident suicides, animal attacks. But I know the truth. It was La Madre del Bosque, the Forest Mother, an ancient Aztec entity that lives in the Mazamitla forest, deep in the mountains of Jalisco, Mexico. And my mother was her daughter. This is my testimony. If you listen to this story until the end, you'll understand why I never enter forests, why I sleep with every light in my house burning, why my hands shake when I hear certain sounds in the dark, and why last night when I heard 3 slow knocks on my bedroom window, I didn't dare look outside. Because 30 years ago, I made a mistake. I looked, and now it knows where I am. Monterrey, Mexico, November 2019. My son Daniel went missing yesterday at 4 in the afternoon. He was playing in the small forest preserve near our house, the one with the hiking trails and wooden benches where families have picnics on Sundays. When we found him 2 hours later as the sun was setting and the temperature was dropping and my wife was screaming his name until her voice went raw, my mother was standing beside him. The mother who died in 1989. She hasn't aged a single day. Same black hair falling to her shoulders, same smooth skin, same white dress she wore that last night in Mazamitla, though it should have rotted away in whatever grave they never found for her. She smiled at me. That smile. I know that smile. 30 years, Andres. It's time to come home. But this story doesn't start in 2019. It doesn't start with Daniel or with me at 47 years old standing in a forest in Monterey with my heart trying to break through my ribs. This story starts in 1980 when I was 8 years old and my family was still whole. When we still believed in normal things, when we still thought that walls kept monsters out, the day my brother Diego changed. Guadalajara, December 1980. Christmas season. The air smelled like pine needles and cinnamon like hot chocolate and tamales steaming in my grandmother's kitchen. Our house was a colonial mansion in the Chapalita neighborhood, 300 square meters of high ceilings and thick walls and rooms that echoed when you walked through them alone. Religious icons hung in every hallway, crosses above every door. My father said they protected us. My mother never looked at them. We were a perfect family, at least that's what everyone said. Wealthy, respected. My father owned textile factories. We had 3 cars, 2 maids, a gardener. I went to a private Catholic school where the nuns hit your knuckles with rulers if you spoke during Mass. My brother Diego was 15, brilliant, destined for medical school. My sister Lucia was 4, small and quiet, and always watching things the rest of us didn't see. And my mother Elena was beautiful. Everyone said so. Beautiful and strange, though they only whispered the second part when they thought I couldn't hear. December 12th. The Feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe. That's when it started, though maybe it had been happening for longer, and I just finally noticed. Maybe the signs had been there all along, and I was too young, too stupid, too comfortable in my safe house with my safe family to see what was right in front of me. I woke up at 2 in the morning. Scratching sounds pulled me out of sleep, that specific sound of fingernails on plaster, methodical and patient, like someone trying to dig through a wall one scrape at a time. The sound came from right next to my bed, so close I should have been able to reach out and touch whatever was making it. I lay there in the dark for 30 seconds, maybe a minute, telling myself it was pipes in the walls or rats or branches from the jacaranda tree outside scraping against the house in the wind. But there was no wind. I could see my curtains hanging perfectly still in the moonlight coming through my window. The scratching continued. Steady, deliberate. I reached over and turned on my bedside lamp, that heavy brass one with the green glass shade that my grandmother had given me for my 7th birthday. Yellow light flooded my room, pushing the shadows into the corners. That's when I saw her. My mother stood next to my bed. She was wearing her white nightgown, the one with lace at the collar and sleeves. Her left hand was pressed against the wall, fingernails scraping back and forth across the plaster, back and forth, white powder dusting the floor beneath her hand. blood on her fingertips where the nails had torn, but her face. Her face is what I still see in my nightmares 39 years later. Her eyes were completely black. Not the pupils, not the iris, everything. Two holes of absolute darkness in her face, like someone had scooped out her eyes and replaced them with pieces of night. Her mouth was moving so fast I couldn't see her lips, just a blur where her mouth should be, like a hummingbird's wings. No sound came out. But I knew she was praying, or something that looked like praying but wasn't. "Mama," I whispered. The word felt small and useless in my mouth. She turned her head toward me, slow, too slow, like her neck was fighting against the movement. Those void black eyes locked onto mine. I felt cold everywhere, the kind of cold that starts in your stomach and spreads through your blood until your fingers and toes go numb. Her mouth stopped moving. She smiled. Not a mother's smile, not a human smile. Something else wearing my mother's face, pulling her lips back to show too many teeth. The door to my room burst open. My father stood in the doorway, breathing hard like he'd been running. He took one look at my mother and crossed the room in 3 strides, grabbing her arm and pulling her hand away from the wall. Plaster crumbled. Small chunks of wall falling, revealing the wooden slats underneath. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, pinning her arms to her sides. She didn't fight him. She just kept smiling at me with those empty eyes. "Don't worry, son. Your mother is just sleepwalking. She's been doing this since she was a little girl. It doesn't mean anything." But his voice shook when he said it, and as he pulled her out of my room and closed the door behind them, I heard her laugh. Soft and low, and not my mother's laugh at all. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. I sat in my bed with the lamp on, staring at the wall where she'd been scratching. Deep grooves carved into the plaster, 5 parallel lines about 2 feet long. Like she'd been trying to claw her way through to something on the other side. The next morning, my father covered the scratches with white paint. He whistled while he worked like everything was normal. Like his wife hadn't been standing in their 8-year-old son's room at 2 in the morning with black eyes and bleeding fingers scratching at the walls. "It was just a nightmare, Andres. Sometimes we have bad dreams that seem real. You probably fell asleep and dreamed the whole thing." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to so badly that I almost convinced myself he was right. Almost. Then that night we heard Diego screaming. His bedroom was on the 2nd floor at the end of the hallway past my parents' room. When I heard him, I ran without thinking, my bare feet slapping against the cold tile. My father got there first. He froze in the doorway, blocking my view, but I could hear sounds, wet sounds, tearing sounds. My father's voice was very quiet when he spoke. "Diego." "Put them down, right now!" I pushed past him and immediately wished I hadn't. My brother sat on his bed legs crossed, blood covering his mouth and chin and the front of his white pajamas. Feathers stuck to the blood, gray and white feathers. On the floor around his bed, 3 dead pigeons. One of them was still twitching. Diego looked up at us. His eyes were normal, dark brown like they'd always been. But his smile was the same smile I'd seen on my mother's face the night before. Too wide, too many teeth. "They told me to eat them," he said. His voice was calm, almost cheerful, like he was telling us about a good grade on a test. "They said I needed to taste blood, to prepare." My father stepped forward, hands raised like he was approaching a wild animal. "Who told you this?" Son Diego pointed at his bedroom window. "The women without heads. They stand outside my window every night. They tap on the glass until I wake up. Last night they told me to catch the pigeons from the roof. Tonight they told me to eat them. They said tomorrow they'll tell me what comes next." My mother appeared in the doorway behind me. She looked at Diego, at the dead birds, at the blood. Something flickered across her face, too fast for me to read. Then she was back to normal, rushing forward with a towel, cleaning Diego's face, making those soft, worried sounds mothers make. But I saw her eyes before she moved, just for a second. They'd been that same endless black, then brown, like she was switching between 2 different people inside the same skin. That was December 1980, the beginning. For the next 6 years, I watched my brother fall apart piece by piece while my parents spent every peso we had trying to fix him. Doctors in Guadalajara who couldn't explain the violent episodes. Psychiatrists in Mexico City who prescribed medications that did nothing. Neurologists who ran tests and found nothing wrong with his brain. Even priests who tried exorcisms while my grandmother wept in the corner, and my mother watched with those black eyes that came and went like phases of the moon. Diego got worse. He stopped sleeping, started eating raw meat, stealing it from the kitchen in the middle of the night. He was expelled from his Catholic preparatory school after he bit a classmate during a fight. Not just bit, tore. They said he took a piece of the other boy's forearm, a chunk of muscle the size of a fist. They said his teeth were what did it. Said they'd never seen bite marks like that on a human being. My father hired security guards to watch Diego at night. Special locks on his bedroom door that could only be opened from the outside. Windows replaced with security glass after he broke the original ones trying to climb out. Our home became a prison. Our family became guards and prisoner, and the 2 younger children who were supposed to pretend everything was fine. Lucia knew better than to pretend. She was 6 years old by then, small for her age, with our mother's black hair and dark eyes. She came to my room one night, slipping through my door without knocking, climbing into my bed like she used to do when she was smaller and had nightmares. "Andres," she whispered, "do you hear them too? Hear what the noise is?" Every night, in the walls, walking that sounds wrong like someone moving backward, and whispers that come from nowhere. I wanted to say no. I wanted to tell her she was imagining things. But I'd been hearing it too. Footsteps in the hallways when everyone was supposed to be asleep. Movement in the walls that traveled from room to room like something was crawling through the spaces between. Laughter that came from nowhere and everywhere at once. "It's Mama Lucia said. She walks on the walls at night when she thinks we're sleeping. I saw her once. She was upside down on the ceiling above my bed, just standing there, looking at me. That's not possible," I told her. "People can't walk on ceilings." Lucia looked at me with eyes too old for a 6-year-old face. "That's not Mama anymore. Not really. Something is inside her, and it's waiting." Waiting for what? She didn't answer, just pressed her face into my shoulder and didn't let go until morning. December 1987. 7 years after it started. I was 14. Diego was 21. Lucia was 10. We'd learned to live with the monster in our house the way you learn to live with anything if it goes on long enough. We'd learned to ignore the sounds at night, to avoid Diego when his eyes went distant and empty, to watch our mother for the signs that she was about to switch into that other thing that wore her face. My father announced we were having a Christmas dinner, the whole family, all his brothers and their wives and children, my grandmother, 30 people total. The first big gathering we'd had since Diego got sick. He said it would be good for us. Said Diego had been stable for 6 months on new medication from the Mayo Clinic in the United States. Said we deserved to be a normal family again. My grandmother Rosa said it was a terrible idea. She didn't say why. Just looked at my mother with this expression I couldn't read, something between fear and hatred and grief all mixed together. But my father insisted. He always insisted. He was used to getting his way, used to solving problems with money and determination and the force of his will. He thought he could will his family back to normal. The dinner was on December 23rd. I remember because I was counting down the days until Christmas, hoping that maybe this year would be different. Maybe this year we'd actually have a good Christmas. Maybe Diego would stay stable and my mother would stop scratching walls and I could go back to being a regular teenager, worried about regular teenage things instead of whether my brother was going to hurt someone or whether the thing inside my mother was going to finally break free. The dinner started well enough. Everyone arrived dressed in their best clothes, bringing gifts and desserts and bottles of wine. The house filled with noise and laughter and the smell of mole and tamales and pozole simmering on the stove. Lucia helped set the table, arranging poinsettias between the plates. Diego sat quietly in his chair, eating slowly, speaking when spoken to. I almost relaxed. Then I caught him staring at our cousin Javier, who was 25 and played soccer semi-professionally and had just gotten engaged to a girl from Monterrey. Javier was laughing at something one of my uncles said, head thrown back, happy and alive and normal. Diego was smiling. That smile. I opened my mouth to say something to warn someone, but I was too slow. Diego stood up. No one else noticed at first. He walked around the table toward Javier, still smiling. Javier saw him coming and smiled back, probably thinking Diego wanted to congratulate him on his engagement. Diego grabbed Javier by the front of his shirt. Javier weighed 95 kilograms of muscle and bone. Diego weighed maybe 60 kilograms, thin and wasted from years of not eating properly, not sleeping, the disease eating him from the inside out. Diego lifted Javier off his feet like he weighed nothing and threw him. Javier flew. I don't mean he fell or stumbled. He flew through the air, over the table, across the living room. He hit the marble coffee table in the center of the room, and the table shattered. Javier landed in the wreckage. Blood. So much blood. Bone sticking through the skin of his left leg. Everyone was screaming. Someone called an ambulance. My father and uncles ran to Javier, and Diego stood there looking down from the second-floor balcony where he'd thrown Javier from, still smiling. The mothers say no strangers in our house, he said. His voice was calm, empty, like he was reading from a script. They don't like strangers. They want us alone, just family, just blood. Javier survived, 3 surgeries and 18 months of physical therapy. He never walked without a limp again. That was our last Christmas together as a family. October 1988, almost a year later. Diego had been in and out of institutions, drugged and restrained and studied by doctors who kept telling us they'd never seen anything like this. My father had spent everything trying to fix him. The factories were struggling. We'd sold one of the cars, the maids were gone. The house felt bigger and emptier and colder. I came home from school and found Diego sitting in the garden. It was a warm afternoon, October sun golden on the grass. He looked peaceful. More peaceful than I'd seen him in years. His eyes were clear. His hands weren't shaking. I sat down next to him. Part of me knew I shouldn't. Part of me knew this was a trap, that peace was always followed by something worse. But he was my brother. Before all of this, before the monsters came, he'd taught me how to ride a bicycle. He'd helped me with my math homework. He'd let me sleep in his room when I had nightmares. Andres, he said, I'm sorry for everything, for not being a better brother to you. The words hit me like a fist. Tears burned in my eyes and I couldn't stop them. It's all Mama's fault, Diego continued. His voice was soft, sad, completely human. Since she came to my room that night, the night of the Virgen de Guadalupe in 1980, I felt it. I felt something enter me. She was standing by my bed, just staring, and I felt it crawl inside. What was it? The inheritance. That's what they call it. They live in her blood, in her bones. She tolerates them somehow. She was born with them, but I'm weak, I'm human. Their presence is consuming mine, drop by drop, cell by cell. Soon there won't be anything left of me. He kept repeating it. Their presence will consume us. Their presence will consume us. Faster and faster until the words ran together. Then he looked at me, really looked at me. I saw my brother in there, the real Diego, trapped behind his own eyes. Forgive me, little brother. Forgive me for everything, and forgive me for this. He pulled a piece of rusted metal from his pocket. Later they told me it was part of an old gate hinge from the garden shed, sharp on one end. He'd been planning this. Before I could move, before I could scream, before I could do anything at all, he drew it across his own throat. Blood sprayed. Hot and red and so much more than I thought a human body could hold. It hit my face, my shirt, the grass between us. Diego fell forward into my lap. His eyes were still open, still looking at me. Still my brother. Then they went empty. I screamed until my voice broke, until my father came running, until neighbors came and police came and ambulances came, but none of it mattered because Diego was gone. The funeral was 3 days later. Rain hammered Guadalajara like the sky was trying to drown the city. My mother howled through the whole service. Actually howled animal sounds that barely sounded human, throwing herself on the casket until my father and uncles had to physically restrain her. She tore at her own face with her fingernails, leaving red streaks down her cheeks. She ripped the rosary from around her neck hard enough to snap the chain. When they lowered the casket into the ground, she jumped into the grave with it. Had to be pulled out by force, screaming that they couldn't take him, couldn't leave him alone in the dark. Everyone said it was grief, just grief, the natural response of a mother who lost her son. But I saw her eyes when they pulled her out of that grave. Completely black. And she was smiling. 1 month later, November 1989, my father made an announcement. We needed healing. We needed to be together as a family. We needed to get away from Guadalajara and the memories and the whispers. We were going to Mazamitla, Uncle Rafael's hacienda. The whole family, 14 people total, staying for a week. Fresh air and forest and time to remember what it felt like to be whole. My grandmother begged him not to go. Actually got down on her knees in front of my father, something I'd never seen her do. I was listening from the hallway, not supposed to be hearing this conversation. Please, Ricardo, don't take them there. Don't take her there. My father's voice was gentle but firm. Mama Rafael is my brother. He's been managing the hacienda alone for 7 years. This family needs to heal. You don't understand. That place, that forest, you can't take Elena back there. Why not? Because that's where I found her. Silence, long and heavy. Long. 38 years ago, when your father and I first bought that land, I found her in the forest. A baby, maybe 3 days old, lying in a cradle made of bones and roots, and next to her my grandmother stopped. I could hear her crying. Next to her, what Mama next to her, was the thing that made her. The thing the local people call La Madre del Bosque, the forest mother. It looked at me. It didn't have eyes, but it looked at me, and it smiled. Then it pointed at the baby, then at me, like it was giving her to me, like she was a gift. My father's voice was harder now. That's enough. You're talking nonsense. Elena is our daughter. We're going to Mazamitla. End of discussion. But my grandmother wasn't finished. If you take the children there, if you take Andres and Lucia, it will know. It will recognize the lineage, Elena's essence, its essence. It will want them back. For what? For the ritual. Every 38 years it needs to complete the ritual, to bring its children home. My father didn't respond. I heard footsteps, a door closing. The conversation was over. That night I found Lucia in her room packing a small bag. "Where are you going?" I asked. She looked up at me with those dark eyes that saw too much. "Nowhere. I just want to be ready in case we need to run." "Run from what?" "From Mama, from whatever is coming." "She's getting worse, Andres. Haven't you noticed the sounds are louder at night, more frequent? And yesterday I saw her in the garden talking to something I couldn't see. She kept saying, 'Yes, yes, I'll bring them, yes.'" I sat down on her bed. My hands were shaking. I didn't want to know what to say. Lucia sat next to me, took my hand. "Andres, I'm scared. I don't want to go to Mazamitla." "Grandmother is right. There's something wrong with that place. Something waiting for us. We have to go. We don't have a choice. But I'll protect you, I promise." It was a stupid promise. The kind of promise a 14-year-old boy makes because he doesn't know any better, because he still thinks promises mean something, because he hasn't learned yet that some things are too big to fight, too old to kill, too hungry to refuse. November 23rd, 1989. We left early, 4 cars in a convoy heading southeast out of Guadalajara. It should have been a 4-hour drive. It took 6 because my aunt got a flat tire and we had to stop, because one of my cousins got carsick and we had to stop, because my mother kept asking to stop, saying she felt strange, saying she needed air. In our car, it was me, Lucia, my parents. I sat in the back with Lucia. She held my hand the whole way, squeezing so hard I lost feeling in my fingers. 40 kilometers outside Mazamitla, my mother started humming. Quiet at first, then louder. A tune I didn't recognize, old and discordant, the kind of melody that makes your teeth hurt. "Elena," my father said. "What are you humming?" My mother's humming stopped. She turned to look at him. Her eyes were that void black again, all-consuming darkness. And she smiled, that terrible smile. "Going home," she said. "Finally going home. After so long. Mother is waiting. She's been waiting so long. She's hungry." Her voice wasn't her own. It was deeper layered, like multiple people speaking at once. My father slammed on the brakes. The car behind us honked. We swerved onto the shoulder of the road gravel, crunching under the tires. "Who are you?" my father asked. His voice was shaking. "Where is my wife?" My mother blinked. The darkness drained from her eyes like water circling a drain. She looked confused, disoriented. "What happened? Why did we stop?" My father stared at her for a long moment. Then he put the car in gear and pulled back onto the road without saying another word. In the back seat, Lucia whispered in my ear, "She's not coming back this time. Mama is gone. That thing is all that's left." I wanted to tell her she was wrong. I couldn't. We arrived at Uncle Raphael's hacienda as the sun was setting, painting the mountains orange and purple. The building rose from the earth like something that had grown there, rather than been built. Gray stone walls, 2 feet thick, narrow windows, like the slits in a fortress. Smoke curled from the chimney. The smell of wood fire and damp earth and something else, something rotten underneath that made my stomach turn. Uncle Raphael stood in the courtyard waiting for us. Behind him, 2 men with rifles slung over their shoulders. Arturo and Fernando, the property managers. Their faces were hard weathered by sun and wind and something else. Fear, I realized. They were afraid. "Welcome," Uncle Raphael said. His smile didn't reach his eyes. He looked at my mother for a long moment, then at the forest behind the hacienda, dense and dark even in the fading light. "Elena, you haven't been here since you were a baby." My mother stood very still, staring at the tree line. "I remember," she said softly, "I remember everything." "What do you remember?" my father asked. "Where I came from." The hacienda had 12 rooms spread across 2 floors. Stone floors that held the cold, wooden beams across the ceilings, dark with age and smoke. The furniture was old, heavy pieces that looked like they'd been there since the building was constructed in 1890. Religious icons hung on the walls, but they were different from the ones in our house in Guadalajara. Older, stranger. Figures I didn't recognize with too many arms or animal heads or eyes that seemed to follow you across the room. Lucia grabbed my hand when she saw them. "Those aren't saints," she whispered. Uncle Raphael showed us to our rooms on the 2nd floor. Mine overlooked the north side of the property facing the forest. Through the window I could see trees packed so tightly together that no light penetrated more than a few feet. The forest seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting with each gust of wind. That night at dinner, Uncle Raphael stood up with his wine glass. The whole family was there, 14 of us crowded around the long table. My cousins, my aunts, and uncle's grandmother, Rosa, who looked like she hadn't slept in days. "I want to establish one rule before we begin this week together," Uncle Raphael said. His voice was hard, leaving no room for argument. "No one goes near the North Forest edge. That section of the property is off limits. If I or my men catch anyone there will be consequences. I'm not joking." "Why?" asked Thomas, Uncle Raphael's son, who was 21 and thought he knew everything. Uncle Raphael's jaw tightened. "Bears, mountain lions. The forest isn't safe." But I saw how he looked at my mother when he said it. Not warning us about bears. Warning us about her. Warning us to keep her away from the forest, or maybe warning the forest to stay away from us. After dinner, I helped Lucia get ready for bed. She was pale, trembling, refusing to look at the window even though the curtains were drawn. "I don't want to sleep here," she said. "Can I sleep in your room? You're too old for that now. Please, Andres, I can feel it. Something is watching the house, something in the forest. It knows we're here." I wanted to tell her she was being silly, but I felt it too. That sensation of invisible eyes tracking your every movement. The hair on the back of my neck standing up for no reason. The cold that had nothing to do with temperature. Fine, but just for tonight. She grabbed her pillow and followed me to my room. We left the lamp burning on the nightstand. Neither of us mentioned it, but neither of us wanted to be in the dark. I woke at 2 in the morning to knocking sounds. For a moment I thought I was back home in Guadalajara, 8 years old again, about to see my mother standing next to my bed, with void black eyes and bleeding fingers. But this was different. The knocking came from outside, from beneath my window. Lucia was awake too, sitting up in bed with her eyes wide. "Do you hear it?" she whispered. I nodded. Slowly, carefully, I got out of bed and moved to the window. The curtains were thin, white cotton, almost transparent in the moonlight. I could see shapes moving outside. Dark shapes against darker darkness. "Don't look," Lucia said. "Please don't look." But I had to know. I pulled the curtain back just an inch. 3 figures stood in the courtyard below my window, naked. Impossibly thin skin stretched tight over bones, and they had no heads. Just smooth expanses of skin where their heads should have been, but they were looking up at my window. I don't know how I knew that without eyes or faces, but I knew. They were staring directly at me. One of them raised its hand. It had 6 fingers on that hand, I noticed, with a sick lurch in my stomach. It waved. Then it opened a mouth in its chest, a horizontal slit that stretched from shoulder to shoulder, and it smiled with too many teeth. I dropped the curtain and stumbled backward. My heart was trying to break through my ribs. Lucia grabbed me and we huddled together on the bed, not speaking, barely breathing. The knocking continued. Slow, patient, like they had all the time in the world. Then footsteps in the hallway outside my room. Heavy footsteps that moved wrong, like someone walking with joints that bent in directions they shouldn't. They stopped outside my door. The doorknob turned slowly, testing. I'd locked it before bed, but the lock was old, just a simple bolt that wouldn't stop anything that really wanted to get in. The doorknob stopped turning. Silence. Then a voice from the other side of the door, my mother's voice, but wrong, layered with other voices underneath. "Andres, Lucia, open the door. Mother wants to see you." We didn't move, didn't breathe. "Open the door, children. We're going home soon. All of us together. One family, one lineage." The door shook. Once, twice. Then footsteps moving away, that same backward wrong sound fading down the hallway. We didn't sleep the rest of the night. When morning came, gray light filtering through the curtains, we found deep gouges on the outside of my window. 5 parallel lines carved into the stone. And on the windowsill, something that looked like dried blood but was black instead of red. At breakfast, no one mentioned the noises from the night before. My father looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes. Uncle Raphael kept glancing at the doors and windows. The 2 property managers, Arturo and Fernando, hadn't come to breakfast at all. My mother sat at the table eating nothing, just staring at her plate with a small smile on her face. After breakfast, Uncle Raphael pulled my father aside. I followed, staying out of sight. "We need to leave," Uncle Raphael said. His voice was low, urgent. "Today, right now. We just got here yesterday. Ricardo, you don't understand. They're here, the Guardians. I've been seeing them for 2 weeks, ever since I called to invite you. They know Elena is back. Elena is my wife. She's not human," Uncle Raphael said flatly. "Mama told me the truth years ago. Elena was found in the forest. The forest mother birthed her, and now that she's back, it wants to complete what it started. You're talking like a superstitious fool. Am I then?" Explain Arturo. "What about Arturo?" Uncle Raphael's face went pale. "We found him this morning, in the storage shed. What was left of him." My father said nothing. The lower half of his body was gone, consumed. And there were bite marks, human bite marks, female. I know because we took impressions before we buried him in the back field. You buried him without calling the police. What would I tell them? That something in the forest ate my employee? That my sister-in-law is some kind of creature? They'd lock me up. My father's voice dropped to a whisper. Where is Elena now? I don't know. I haven't seen her since last night. Find her, now. They split up to search the hacienda. I stayed hidden, my mind spinning. My mother had killed Arturo, eaten him. The thought should have been impossible, but I knew it was true. I'd seen her eyes turn to void, black darkness. Heard her voice layer with sounds that weren't human. 20 minutes later, they found her. In the storage room on the first floor, the one where we'd found Arturo's body. She was kneeling in the corner, naked, covered in dried blood. When my father tried to approach her, she snarled. Actually snarled like a dog protecting its meal. Elena, my father said, please, come back to me. She looked up at him. Her eyes were that endless darkness. She smiled with red teeth. I'm already gone, she said in that layered voice. I was never yours. I was always hers. And soon the children will be too. My father lunged forward, trying to grab her. She moved faster than should have been possible, scuttling up the wall like an insect, her spine bending backward at an angle that would have broken a normal person. She clung to the ceiling, head twisted around to look at us upside down. Soon, she said, very soon. The ritual is almost complete. 38 years I've waited, 38 years pretending to be human. But I'm going home now, and I'm taking my children with me. Then she was gone, through a window too small for a human body to fit through, moving like liquid, like something with no bones at all. Uncle Raphael grabbed my father's arm. We leave now. Take the children and go. I'll handle the police, make up a story about Arturo. What about Elena? She's not Elena anymore. Maybe she never was. But my father didn't listen. He never listened. That afternoon, while Uncle Raphael was trying to convince the rest of the family to leave, while my aunts and uncles were arguing about whether to stay or go, my father took one of the rifles and walked into the forest alone. I watched him go from my window, watched him disappear between the trees. The forest seemed to swallow him whole. Lucia came to stand beside me. He's not coming back, she said. Not the same way. 3 hours later, as the sun was setting, my father emerged from the forest. He was smiling. His shirt was torn, blood covering his chest and arms, but he was smiling. My father walked straight to the hacienda, opened the door, and came inside. His eyes were that same void black darkness I'd seen in my mother's. I found her, he announced to the family gathered in the living room. Elena is waiting for us, in the forest. She wants to see the children. She says it's time to go home. Uncle Raphael raised his rifle. You're not Ricardo anymore. My father tilted his head, studying Uncle Raphael like a predator studying prey. I'm more Ricardo than I've ever been. Elena showed me the truth, showed me what we really are, what we've always been. You feel it too, don't you, brother? The pull, the recognition, the forest remembering us. My father opened his shirt. His chest was covered in bite marks, dozens of them deep enough to show bone, but he wasn't bleeding. The wounds were already closing. They welcome me, my father said. The mothers, the guardians, they said we've been away too long, said it's time to complete the ritual, to bring the children back where they belong. Get away from him, Uncle Raphael shouted at us. All of you upstairs now. But before we could move, my father lunged forward with impossible speed. He grabbed Uncle Raphael by the throat and lifted him off the ground with one hand. Uncle Raphael fired the rifle, point blank, into my father's stomach. The bullet punched through spraying blood and tissue across the wall behind him. My father didn't even flinch. He looked down at the wound, then back at Uncle Raphael, still smiling. That tickles, he said. Then he threw Uncle Raphael across the room. Uncle Raphael hit the stone wall, and I heard bones crack. He slid to the floor and didn't move. My father turned to look at the rest of us, his smile, widened jaw extending further than human jaws should go. Andres, Lucia, come here, children. Your mother is waiting. She misses you so much. We ran. All of us, everyone in the family, scrambling for the stairs, the doors, anywhere away from the thing that used to be my father. I grabbed Lucia's hand and we ran upstairs to my room. I slammed the door and shoved a heavy dresser in front of it. Outside, I heard screaming, gunshots, the sound of wood splintering, my father's voice calling our names in that wrong, layered tone. Andres, Lucia, don't make this harder than it has to be. We're family. Family should be together. Thomas, Uncle Raphael's son, appeared at my door. He was 21, strong, played football at university. His face was white with terror. We need to leave, now. Back entrance through the kitchen. I know a trail through the forest gets us down to the valley road, 5 kilometers. We can make it if we run. What about Uncle Raphael? Tomas's face went hard. My father is dead. Your father broke his neck, and your mother came back. She's downstairs right now with your father. They're looking for you, more screaming from downstairs. A woman's voice cut short, then silence. We don't have time, Tomas said. Either you come now or you die here. I looked at Lucia. She was crying silently, tears streaming down her face. I took her hand. Lead the way. There were 9 of us who made it out the back of the hacienda. Me, Lucia, Tomas, my Aunt Patricia, and her 2 young children, Grandmother Rosa, and 2 of my cousins. The others were either dead or trapped downstairs with my parents. The forest was dark, even though the sun hadn't fully set. The trees seemed to lean inward, branches reaching like fingers. The temperature dropped 20 degrees as soon as we crossed the tree line. Our breath came out in white puffs. We ran along a narrow trail, roots and rocks threatening to trip us with every step. Behind us, the sound of pursuit, not footsteps, something else. Something that moved through the trees without touching the ground branches, shaking in its wake. And laughter. My mother's laughter echoing from every direction at once, impossible to pinpoint. We're playing tag, children, just like when you were little. Run, run as fast as you can. But you can't hide from Mother. One of my aunt's children, little Anna, who was only 6 years old, tripped. My aunt stopped to help her up. That's when it came. From the darkness between the trees, something lunged. Not my mother. One of the headless things I'd seen the night before. It grabbed Anna by the ankle and dragged her screaming into the undergrowth. My Aunt Patricia screamed and tried to follow, but Tomas grabbed her, held her back. She's gone. If you go after her, you're dead too. We have to keep moving. The sound of Anna's screams faded into wet, crunching noises. My aunt collapsed, sobbing. We had to carry her 1 cousin on each side as we stumbled forward through the dark forest. 2 kilometers in, we reached a stream. Fast-moving water, maybe waist-deep, cutting across the trail. Cross it, Tomas said. They can't cross water. My father told me that years ago. The old legends say La Madre del Bosque can't cross running water. It's sacred to the old gods, the ones that came before her. We waded in. The water was freezing, so cold it felt like knives cutting into my legs. The current was strong, trying to pull me downstream. I held Lucia's hand tight, terrified of losing her in the dark water. We made it across and climbed onto the far bank, turned to look back. They stood on the other side, dozens of them, the headless guardians, and in the center my mother and father, both naked, covered in blood, both smiling. My mother waved. I noticed with sick fascination that she now had 6 fingers on each hand. When had that happened? You can't run forever, my mother called. The forest has many streams, but it only takes 1 mistake, 1 moment of weakness, and we'll be there. Then they turned and walked back into the trees, disappearing like smoke. We kept running. 2 more kilometers through the dark forest, every shadow a threat, every sound a potential attack. My lungs burned, my legs were numb. Lucia was barely conscious. I was half carrying her. Finally, we saw lights ahead. A small cabin, abandoned hunting shack from the looks of it, door hanging off its hinges. No glass in the windows, but it had walls and a roof. We'll rest here until dawn, Thomas said. Then finish the trek to the road. They won't follow us past the forest boundary. We collapsed inside, 8 of us now. Anna was gone, and so was one of my cousins, Felipe. I hadn't even seen him disappear. One moment he was there, the next he wasn't. The cabin smelled like rot and old blood. There were marks on the walls, deep gouges that looked familiar, and in the corner bones, small bones, animal I hoped. But they were arranged in a pattern, a circle with symbols I didn't recognize. Lucia squeezed my hand. "This is a bad place, Andres. We shouldn't stay here. We don't have a choice. Dawn in 6 hours. Then we run." But we didn't make it 6 hours. At midnight I woke to singing. My mother's voice soft and sweet, like when I was small and couldn't sleep, and she'd sit by my bed singing lullabies. Duermete mi niño, duermete mi sol, duermete pedazo de mi corazón. Sleep, my child, sleep, my son, sleep, piece of my heart. I looked out the window. Bright moon. My mother standing in the clearing 20 feet from the cabin, still naked, still covered in blood, still smiling. "Andres," she called, "I know you can hear me. Come outside. Talk to your mother." I didn't move. "Lucia is asleep. I could wake her. I could take her right now. But I'd rather you came willingly. I'd rather we do this as a family." Suddenly, Lucia stood up, eyes open but empty, sleepwalking. She walked toward the door. Lucia, no, I grabbed her, but she was strong, stronger than she should have been, pushing against me with inhuman force. "She's already mine," my mother said from outside. "She has my essence, your essence, the recognition of the forest. You can't fight it, Andres. None of you can." Tomas woke up, saw what was happening. He grabbed Lucia's other arm. Together we pulled her back from the door. She fought us silently, her eyes still empty. Then the door opened on its own. My mother stood in the doorway. Behind her, my father. Behind him, dozens of the headless guardians. "Time to come home," my mother said. "Time to complete the ritual. Every 38 years, the Forest Mother calls her children back. In 1951, your grandmother stole me, raised me as human, but I was never human, and neither are you." She stepped inside. I could smell her now. Not my mother's smell of flowers and clean laundry. This was the smell of earth and blood and things that rot in dark places. Diego understood at the end, she continued. "That's why he killed himself. He knew what was coming, knew he couldn't fight it. The presence consumed him because he was weak. But you're stronger, you and Lucia. You'll survive the transformation." "What transformation? Becoming what you were always meant to be. Children of the forest, guardians of the threshold. Hunters in the dark." She reached for me. That's when Grandmother Rosa stepped between us. She'd been hiding in the corner, weapon ready. She raised an old hunting rifle, aiming it at my mother. "Stay away from them," Rosa said. Her voice was steady, hard. My mother tilted her head. "Hello, Mama. Did you really think you could keep me forever? Did you think your prayers and your crosses and your lies would change what I am? I know what you are. I've always known. And I should have left you in that forest 38 years ago, but you didn't. You took me, raised me, fed me, let me breed. And now my children will return home over my dead body." Rosa fired. The bullet hit my mother in the chest. Blood sprayed. My mother stumbled back. Then she laughed, looked down at the wound, looked back at Rosa. "Thank you, Mama. That's exactly what the ritual needed. The blood of the one who took me. The blood of the one who tried to break the cycle. Now it's complete. The wound wasn't healing. Blood poured out, but my mother wasn't dying. She was changing. Her skin rippled. Bones cracked and reformed. She was growing. Getting taller, thinner. Her mouth opened wider than possible, jaw unhinging like a snake. "This is what I really look like," she said in a voice that was no longer human at all. "This is what your grandson married. What gave birth to these children. Do you understand now? There is no saving them. They're mine. They've always been mine." Rosa fired again. And again, emptying the rifle into my mother's body. Each shot just made her laugh harder. Then my father was inside the cabin. He grabbed Rosa but didn't kill her immediately. Instead, he dragged her outside into the clearing where the guardians waited. What happened next, I didn't see clearly, but Grandmother Rosa's screams lasted a long time, too long. When the screaming finally stopped, my father came back to the cabin doorway, blood covering his mouth and hands. "Run," Tomas screamed. We ran, out the back of the cabin into the forest, blind with terror. Behind us, screams from the others who hadn't been fast enough to escape. We ran until we couldn't breathe, until my legs gave out, until Lucia collapsed beside me. We'd made it maybe half a kilometer. We were in a small clearing, moonlight filtering through the trees. I could hear water nearby, another stream. "If we can reach the water," I gasped. "If we can cross it." "Too late," said a voice behind us. I turned. My mother stood at the edge of the clearing, but she wasn't my mother anymore. 7 feet tall, now impossibly thin joints bending backward. Her skin had turned gray, mottled like dead bark. Her face had elongated jaw, extending forward, teeth growing into fangs. But her eyes were still that void black darkness, still watching me with that terrible recognition. "Hello, my son. Did you really think you could run from your own lineage?" Lucia pressed against me. I could feel her heart hammering through her ribs. We were trapped. Forest behind us, my mother in front, and somewhere in the darkness my father and the guardians closing in. "Please," I said. The word came out broken. "Please don't hurt us. Hurt you." My mother's laugh was like wind through dead leaves. "I would never hurt you, Andres. You're my children, my precious children. I just want to bring you home, to show you what you really are." She took a step forward. Moonlight caught her wrong, made her flicker like a shadow given form. "Your grandmother told you I was found in the forest. That's true. But what she didn't tell you is why. Do you want to know the truth, Andres? Do you want to know what you are?" I said nothing. Couldn't speak. Could barely breathe. In 1521, when the Spanish came with their crosses and their swords, the Aztec priests fled into these mountains. They brought their gods with them, the old gods, the hungry gods. They performed the final ritual, sacrificing 100 people to birth a protector, something that would defend the sacred forest forever. She smiled, lips pulling back to show rows of fangs, but the ritual went wrong. What they created wasn't a protector. It was a predator. It killed the priests, consumed them. Then it went into the forest and waited. For centuries it waited. And every 38 years it births a daughter, a bridge between the forest and the human world, a way to feed. You're saying you're not human at all. I was born from corpses and blood and the hunger of forgotten gods. I am La Hija del Bosque, the forest daughter. And you carry my essence, which means you carry its essence, the recognition of Tlaltecutli, the Earth Eater. I felt something shift inside me then, like recognizing a truth I'd always known but refused to see. The sounds I'd heard my whole life. The way I could sometimes see in the dark better than I should. The dreams I had of running through forests on 4 legs, hunting, killing, consuming. "No," I whispered. "Yes." My mother moved closer. "You feel it, don't you? The hunger, the need. Your brother felt it too. It drove him mad because he fought it. But you don't have to fight Andres. You can embrace it, become what you were meant to be." Lucia grabbed my hand. "Don't listen to her. She's lying. We're human. We're human." My mother turned her darkness-filled eyes to Lucia. "Sweet child, you've seen me walk on walls. You've watched me consume human flesh. You know the truth. The question is, will you accept it? Or will you die fighting it like your brother Diego?" A sound from behind us, branches breaking. We spun around. My father emerged from the trees, but he'd changed too. Taller, thinner skin, gray and cracked. His mouth had split at the corners, extending almost to his ears. When he smiled, I could see rows of teeth like a shark. "The children aren't cooperating," my father said. His voice was layered with growls and whispers. "They're afraid. They don't understand yet. But they will." Behind my father, more shapes moved in the darkness. The headless guardians, dozens of them forming a circle around the clearing. We were surrounded. My mother knelt down in front of me, getting to eye level even though she was now grotesquely tall. Her hand reached out, those 6 long fingers stretching toward my face. Her touch was cold, dead. "I can show you everything, Andres. The truth about what we are, where we come from, what we're meant to do. All you have to do is stop fighting, let go, let the lineage take you. Her fingers pressed against my forehead, and suddenly I wasn't in the clearing anymore. I was somewhere else, somewhere dark and vast and hungry. I could see through different eyes, my mother's eyes, back through time. I saw the priests in their blood-soaked robes chanting in Nahuatl, sacrificing men and women on stone altars. I saw the earth crack open, darkness pouring out like oil. I saw the thing that crawled from that crack, ancient and terrible and endless. Tlaltekutli, the earth-eater, a mass of mouths and limbs and hunger given form. I saw it consume the priests. Saw it birth the first daughter from their remains. Saw that daughter walk into a Spanish village and seduce a soldier bearing children who carried the recognition. Generation after generation spreading through Mexico waiting. Every 38 years the oldest daughter returns to complete the ritual, to feed the earth-eater, to birth new daughters, to keep the cycle going. My grandmother Rosa had taken my mother at 3 days old, breaking the cycle. But the forest never forgot. It waited. 38 years, and now it wanted payment, wanted the lineage restored, wanted me and Lucia. I gasped as my mother pulled her hand away. I was back in the clearing, back in my own body, but everything felt different now. I could smell blood on the wind, could hear heartbeats from 100 yards away, could see perfectly in the darkness, every detail sharp and clear. "You see now," my mother said. "You understand. I understand you're a monster. We're all monsters, Andres. You, me." "Lucia, your father, anyone with the recognition. The only difference is some of us accept it." I felt rage then, pure and clean and burning. She'd destroyed my family, killed my brother, turned my father into a thing, and now she wanted me and Lucia. "No," I said. I stood up, pulling Lucia to her feet. "We're leaving, and you're not going to stop us." My mother laughed. "Oh, and how will you stop me, child?" Something moved at the edge of the clearing. A figure stepped into the moonlight, tall, broad-shouldered, carrying something. Thomas. His face was scratched, bleeding, but he was alive. He wasn't carrying a rifle. He was carrying a container, oil, the kind used for lamps. He raised it and threw. The container arced through the air and shattered at my mother's feet. Oil splashed across her legs, across the ground around her. Then Thomas struck a match. The flames spread instantly, racing across the oil in a perfect circle. Fire surrounded my mother, cutting her off from us. The guardians scattered from the heat, their bodies smoking where the flames came close. "They hate fire," Tomas shouted. "The old texts say fire is the one thing they fear. Run toward the stream." Now I grabbed Lucia and we ran, through a gap in the circle of guardians that the fire had created. Behind us, my mother shrieked a sound that wasn't remotely human. The guardians tried to follow, but the flames blocked their path. We ran through the forest, Tomas leading, following the sound of rushing water. My mother's voice followed us, echoing from every direction. "You can't run forever, Andres. The lineage will bring you back. Tonight, tomorrow, in 30 years. It doesn't matter, you'll return. They always return." We reached the stream. Wider here, deeper, the current stronger. The water was black in the moonlight, moving fast over rocks. Across, Thomas said, "This one is different. I can feel it. This is the boundary, the sacred barrier. They can't cross this one." We waded in. The water was so cold it burned, but I pushed forward, holding Lucia's hand. The current tried to sweep us away. Lucia slipped, went under, and I hauled her up, gasping and choking. We made it to the far bank and climbed out, turned to look back. They stood on the other side. My mother and father, the guardians, all of them lined up along the stream bank, not crossing, just watching, waiting. My mother spoke, her voice somehow carrying across the rushing water. 30 years, Andres. That's what the ritual requires. 30 years for the lineage to mature, for the children to grow into their power, and then we'll complete what we started. She raised her hand. Something glinted in the moonlight. A head. I couldn't see whose at first, then my vision focused. Grandmother Rosa's head, just the head. My mother held it up like a trophy, a gift my mother called across the water, something to remember us by. "We'll see you again, Andres, in 30 years. When it's time for you to bring your children home, she threw the head. It arced through the air and splashed into the stream, carried away by the current. Then they turned and walked back into the forest, all of them, disappearing like they'd never been there at all. We ran, 2 more kilometers through the forest, following a trail that led downhill away from the hacienda, away from the stream, away from everything. My legs were numb, my lungs burned. Lucia was barely conscious I was carrying her now. Finally we saw lights, real lights, electric lights, the highway, cars passing in the night. We stumbled out of the forest onto the shoulder of the road. A truck driver saw us pulled over. He took one look at us, covered in blood and mud and scratches, and reached for his radio. The police came, ambulances. They wrapped us in blankets and asked questions we couldn't answer. What happened? Where are your parents? Who hurt you? We told them the truth. They didn't believe us. They found the hacienda 2 days later. Found the bodies, 9 people dead, torn apart, partially consumed. The official report said wild animals, bears or mountain lions or packs of feral dogs. They never found my mother's body or my father's. The bodies they did find were buried quickly, quietly. My family paid to make the investigation go away. We spent 3 days in the hospital in Mazamitla, me, Lucia, and Tomas, the only survivors. Out of 14 people who'd gone to the hacienda, 3 came back. The doctors checked us for injuries, found scratches, bruises, signs of shock and trauma, but nothing that couldn't heal, nothing permanent, except the dreams. Every night I dreamed of the forest, of my mother's face stretching into something inhuman, of the guardians with their headless bodies and chest mouths smiling, of the earth-eater deep below the ground waiting, hungry, eternal. And every night I woke up standing at the window of my hospital room, staring out at the mountains, at the dark line of the forest, feeling something pulling at me, drawing me home. On the 4th day, a relative came to collect us, Uncle Ernesto, my father's youngest brother, who lived in Guadalajara. He was a university professor, rational, scientific. He said the trauma had damaged us, said we needed stability and normalcy and time to heal. He had no idea what we really needed, what we really were. We moved into Uncle Ernesto's house in December 1990, 1 year and 1 month after Mazamitla. The anniversary weighed on me like a stone. I kept expecting my mother to appear, kept waiting for the guardians to come. But nothing happened. The house was quiet. The dreams faded slightly. The pull weakened. Maybe distance helped. Maybe being in the city surrounded by concrete and steel instead of trees made it harder for the forest to reach us. Or maybe it was just waiting. Uncle Ernesto's house was new modern with big windows and white walls and no dark corners for things to hide in. His wife, Tia Ana, was kind. They had 2 children of their own, both younger than us. They tried to make us feel welcome. It almost worked. For a few months, life felt almost normal. I went back to school, made friends, tried to forget about the forest and the lineage and the things we'd seen. Lucia seemed better too. She stopped walking in her sleep, stopped having night terrors. Her eyes stayed brown, normal, human. Maybe we were healing. Maybe we could be human after all. Then came December, the anniversary. Exactly 1 year since we'd gone to Mazamitla. 1 year since everything fell apart. I woke on December 12th, the feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe, to find Lucia standing over my bed. Her eyes were void black, all darkness. "It's time," she said in a voice that wasn't hers. "Mother is summoning us. We have to go." She walked to the window, opened it. Started to climb out. We were on the 2nd floor. I grabbed her, pulled her back. She fought me with inhuman strength, scratching, biting, trying to break free. Uncle Ernesto burst in. Together we held Lucia down until whatever had taken her finally released its grip. Her eyes faded back to brown. She collapsed, crying. "What's wrong with her?" Uncle Ernesto demanded. "What the hell is wrong with both of you? I wanted to tell him the truth." But how do you explain that your sister is connected to an ancient Aztec entity, that your mother was born from corpses and darkness, that you're slowly becoming something not quite human? You'd sound insane. And maybe we were insane. Maybe all of it had been trauma and psychosis and shared delusions. But then Uncle Ernesto saw the marks on Lucia's arms. Deep gouges that hadn't been there before, and her fingernails were bloody and cracked like she'd been clawing at stone, just like our mother used to do. That's when I knew it wasn't over. It would never be over. The lineage was patient. It could wait years, decades, a lifetime, but eventually it would have us. Time is a circle, my mother had said, and circles always close. I looked at my sister crying in Uncle Ernesto's arms, looked at the window she'd tried to climb out of, looked at my own hands and wondered how long before they started changing too. 30 years, my mother had promised. 30 years for the lineage to mature. But I could feel it already, growing, evolving, waiting. The forest never forgets, and neither does the lineage. Months passed, years. Lucia and I grew up in Uncle Ernesto's house, learning to pretend we were normal teenagers who'd survived a tragedy instead of children carrying monster essence in their veins. We saw therapists, took medication, graduated school. I went to medical school. Lucia went to university. We built lives that looked normal from the outside, but inside we were changing, slowly, inevitably. I started noticing things, my vision improving in darkness, my hearing becoming sharper, my sense of smell heightening until I could track people by scent alone, and the hunger, a persistent ache that grew stronger every year, not for food, for something else, something raw and alive and forbidden. Lucia felt it too. She started cutting herself, letting the blood out in small amounts. Better to bleed a little than to lose control completely, she said. We never talked about Mazamitla, never spoke about our parents or what we'd seen in the forest. Uncle Ernesto said it was healthier to move forward, not dwell on the past. But the past wasn't past. It was inside us, growing. The years blurred together. 1991, 1992, 1995, 2000. I became a doctor, got married, had a son, Daniel, born in 1998, 5 fingers on each hand. I counted them, obsessively terrified of seeing a 6th. But my wife, Patricia, left me anyway. She said there was something wrong with me. Some darkness I couldn't hide. She took Daniel with her. Maybe it was better that way. Lucia moved to California, married an American, had a daughter, Isabella. She thought distance would help. 3,000 kilometers from Mexico, 3,000 kilometers from the forest. It didn't help. The years kept passing, 2005, 2010, 2015, getting closer to the 30-year mark, and the dreams got worse. The pull got stronger. I started losing time, waking up in strange places with no memory of how I got there. Once I woke up in my car, 30 kilometers outside Monterey, parked at the entrance to a forest preserve, mud on my shoes, blood under my fingernails that wasn't mine. The lineage was taking control. In 2016, Isabella disappeared. 14 years old, ran away from home. They found her 3 days later in a forest outside San Francisco, naked, covered in someone else's blood eyes that flickered between brown and void black. She escaped from the psychiatric hospital 3 months later, walked through locked doors that opened by themselves. No one ever found her. Lucia fell apart, moved back to Mexico in 2017. The lineage was consuming her from inside, she said. Fighting it for so long had made her sick. She was dying. She died in August 2017, multiple organ failure. I was there when she passed. Her last words, "Tell Daniel I'm sorry. Tell him to run. Tell him the lineage is coming for him next." Then came November 2019, 30 years after Mazamitla. I took Daniel to the forest preserve near my house. He was 21 now, a man. I wanted to warn him, tell him about the lineage, about what was coming. But my mother found us first. She appeared between the trees, still wearing that white dress, still looking exactly the same as 1989. Finally, she said, "After 30 years, you brought him to me." Daniel's eyes turned void black. An extra finger started growing from his right hand, small but unmistakable. The lineage had found him after all. I should have fought, should have saved him. But I was so tired. 47 years of fighting, of running, of pretending to be human. I brought Daniel home, locked him in my apartment. He keeps calling for Mother in that wrong voice, keeps begging me to take him back to the forest. I know I can't keep him here forever. Last night I heard knocking on my window, that familiar sound. I know who's there. She's waiting. They're all waiting. And the terrible thing is, part of me wants to give up, to stop fighting, to go home. Maybe tomorrow I'll take Daniel back to the forest. Maybe I'll let my mother have us both. Or maybe I'll fight for one more day of pretending I'm human when humanity is just a mask I wear. The knocking is getting louder now. 3 slow knocks. Knock, knock, knock. I look at my hands as I write this. 6 fingers on my left hand now. The 6th one grew last night while I slept. My fingernails are black sharp, more like claws. When I look in mirrors, sometimes I see my mother's face instead of my own. I'm running out of time. If you're reading this, know that I tried. I've fought for 30 years. But the lineage is stronger than will, stronger than love, stronger than anything. The forest is always hungry. The forest always waits. And 30 years later, it finally got what it wanted. My hand is reaching for the window curtain. I can't stop it. My body moving on its own. 3 more knocks, demanding. I pull back the curtain. She's there. But older now, ancient. Her face barely human anymore, just a suggestion of features on something that belongs in darkness. Behind her, dozens of figures. The headless guardians, my father, and Isabella, Lucia's daughter. 14 years old, naked eyes, void black, 6 fingers on each hand. Family, my mother whispers without moving her lips. All together, finally. My hand reaches for the window lock. The lineage is singing in my veins. The forest is calling, and I can't fight it anymore. The window opens.